Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Mirna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it. I love clean air, and I breathe quite a lot of it. Did you know that the air inside your home can be more polluted than the air outside? Each of us inhales and exhales an average of 11,000 liters of air every day. At that rate, even tiny levels of airborne toxins pose significant health risks. As someone who talks about healing, mind, body, and longevity, I pay attention to what I'm breathing every day. That's why I partnered with Air Doctor. Their medical-grade air purifiers are designed to capture ultrafine particles like allergens, smoke, pet dander, and other pollutants that can affect your sleep, focus, and overall wellness. If you want to upgrade the air in your home, head to airdoctorpro.com and use code TRANSFORM to get up to $300 off today. Breathe better, live better.
But what happens in the general population in normal times? Number one, if you can't make nitric oxide, you develop erectile dysfunction. That's usually the first sign and symptom, because think about it, in men and women, to get an erection, you have to dilate the blood vessels. You have to get engorgement into the sex organs. And if you can't make nitric oxide, you don't get dilation, you don't get engorgement. Number two, your blood pressure starts to go up, because nitric oxide is what dilates the blood vessels. So we have nitric oxide, we dilate the blood vessels, we have normal blood pressure. If we can't make nitric oxide, the blood vessels become chronically constricted. Now pressure goes up because we've got the same volume of blood going through the smaller pipes. Physics tells us pressure goes up.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Mirna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Dr. Nathan S. Bryan. And Dr. Bryan and I are going to be talking on the topic, how nitric oxide fuels health and longevity. Welcome, Dr. Bryan.
Mirna, thanks so much for having me. Great to be with you.
You're very welcome. Yes, we're being saturated with all the things that can help you with anti-aging and longevity. So I hope that you guys are putting these things to use that I'm bringing to you, because I am. I get to try out all these products and they are great. So I'm going to lift to 180.
I have a goal in mind.
That's right. That's right. Amazing. All right. So let me give you guys a brief introduction. Dr. Nathan S. Bryan is a revolutionary scientist, biotech engineer, and industry disruptor who is redefining the way we think about health, longevity, and human performance. With over 100 peer-reviewed publications and dozens of patents, his groundbreaking discoveries in nitric oxide research have shattered conventional health myths, igniting a billion-dollar market and transforming countless lives. A former professor of molecular medicine, Dr. Bryan left academia to take on big pharma and misinformation head-on, delivering real science-backed solutions directly to the public. Now, as a sought-after speaker and author of The Science of Nitric Oxide, Bringing the Science to Life, he is on a relentless mission to arm people with the tools to reclaim their health, optimize performance, and defy aging. Millions unknowingly suffer from nitric oxide deficiency. Dr. Bryan isn't just educating, he is leading a health revolution. Amen to that. Amen to that. Yeah, I heard something yesterday on CNN that it is amazing. It so happens that my uncle fell off the cliff at 75 and just died. So, Dr. Atia was saying that when we get to 75, we fell off a cliff. So his work is to, make those, 75 to 85, 85 to 95, whether it's your 10 years or 20 years, not sitting, anyway, the quality of life, not just not being able to do anything, but just living. So I'm glad that everybody is in this anti-aging, longevity, health span, um, uh, you know, segment so that we can, can improve our lives. So, but one of the things I do is I like to be curious on my interviews. So, so I don't know anything but this nitric oxide. So let's start off by by asking the question, what exactly is nitric oxide and why is it so important?
Well, no, look, I agree. No one wants to live to be 180 if you spend the last 80 years bedridden and don't enjoy your life. So it's more about the quality of life along with the quantity of life. But no, nitric oxide is a naturally produced gas. It's a gas that's produced in the lining of the blood vessel. It regulates vasomotor tone, blood pressure, regulation of blood flow to tissues upon demand. It mobilizes our own stem cells. It's the signal that tells our own stem cells to mobilize and differentiate to repair and replace dysfunctional cells. It activates the energy producing organelles of the cell, the mitochondria, so we can more efficiently make cellular energy even with less oxygen. It prevents our telomeres from getting shorter, the ends of our chromosomes that determine our lifespan, shorter telomeres, shorter lifespan, longer telomeres, longer lifespan. Um, but yeah, it's a master signaling molecule. And everything we know about longevity, human optimization, and disease prevention is determined by our body's ability to produce nitric oxide.
Okay. So is it the same nitric oxide that um like if you've got gastrointestinal problems and you produce gas, is it I mean, I'm always thinking that this gas is bad for you. So,
Mm. Well, some gases are, but nitric oxide is a gaseous signaling molecule, similar to oxygen and CO2. So these are, the cardiopulmonary cycle is now a three gas system. We breathe in oxygen, which is a gas, it binds to hemoglobin, and then it's delivered to the tissues. And then we pick up carbon dioxide and we exhale that gas in the exhaled breath. And nitric oxide is what controls oxygen uptake and oxygen delivery.
ah,
So it's a very important gas, but no, it's not. And then hydrogen sulfide is a toxic gas, just like nitric oxide was recognized as a toxic gas. But at low physiological concentrations that's produced endogenously, these are very important gasotransmitters or neurotransmitter signaling molecules that just happen to be under normal atmospheric temperature and pressure in the gas phase. But no, these gases really permeate membranes. They readily diffuse through cell membranes and activate second messenger systems. In fact, the Nobel Prize in 1998 was awarded to the discovery of nitric oxide to 3 U.S. scientists because the
nice.
discovery of a gas as a signaling molecule was a completely new kind of paradigm in cell signaling and signal transduction. And that's why it was such a revolutionary discovery.
Wow. Okay. So we need it. So let's say if we don't have enough nitric oxide, you just mentioned that we breathe in oxygen and this nitric oxide is signaling to, the carbon monoxide that we breathe out. So that is something that every person that's alive is doing. So if
Mm.
we don't have this nitric oxide, what happens? Because that's one of the questions here. That if we, nitric oxide deficiency, does that mean we're not breathing properly or what happens?
Well, there are a lot of things that happen, and none of them are good. So we'll take them kind of one by one. In terms of cardiopulmonary cycle in the lungs, if you can't make nitric oxide, you become hypoxic, which means lack of oxygen. And we saw this during COVID, right? The people that got sick and died from COVID were the same people who get sick and die from the seasonal flu every year. Every year, 60 to 80,000 Americans die from flu. COVID came along, and it's a respiratory virus. Same comorbidities, same at-risk population. So what happens is when the virus attaches, it penetrates the cell through the ACE2 receptors, and then it rapidly propagates, replicates throughout the body, and that makes people sick. Now, if you make sufficient nitric oxide, you don't express the ACE2 receptors. Nitric oxide actually prevents the virus from replicating, so you're somewhat immune from respiratory virus infection. So what happened during COVID when you got sick and people couldn't make nitric oxide, they lost blood oxygen saturation, right? They couldn't take up oxygen and deliver oxygen. And we measured that through pulse oximetry. What's the oxygen saturation of hemoglobin? And if your blood oxygen saturation fell below 88, it was considered critical. And you went to the hospital, they give you 100% oxygen. People didn't get better. They put you on a ventilator, sent you into metabolic acidosis, and people died. But you're not out of oxygen, right? The atmospheric oxygen is still 21% oxygen. The body's not out of oxygen. The problem was people have lost the ability to utilize oxygen because they weren't able to make nitric oxide.
Oh,
So
wow.
during COVID, we were giving our nitric oxide drug. We had a clinical study on nitric oxide drugs, and we could improve blood oxygen saturation from 76 to 98 within 6 minutes, just breathing room air. So that proved that was proof of principle that nitric oxide could prevent illness and death from coronavirus or any respiratory virus, for that matter. So that was one. That was during obviously a global pandemic. But what happens in the general population in normal times? Number one, if you can't make nitric oxide, you develop erectile dysfunction. That's usually the first sign and symptom, because think about it, in men and women, to get an erection, you have to dilate the blood vessels. You have to get engorgement into the sex organs. And if you can't make nitric oxide, you don't get dilation, you don't get engorgement. Number two, your blood pressure starts to go up, because nitric oxide is what dilates the blood vessels. So we have nitric oxide, we dilate the blood vessels, we have normal blood pressure. If we can't make nitric oxide, the blood vessels become chronically constricted. Now pressure goes up because we've got the same volume of blood going through the smaller pipes. Physics tells us pressure goes up. Number three, you start to develop metabolic disease. And by the way, 2 out of 3 Americans have unsafe elevation in blood pressure. So it tells you the severity of the problem. Number three, we develop metabolic disease and insulin resistance. Number four, you develop exercise intolerance. You can't maintain an exercise regimen without getting short of breath or developing chest tightening or chest pain. And then number five, if you ignore all these symptoms, you develop brain fog, dementia, and eventually you'll get Alzheimer's. So that's the hierarchy of symptoms that manifest when you gradually lose the ability to produce nitric oxide.
Wow. Wow. That is such an important message. Wow. It's really interesting. There's so many circle backs I have there. One, as you were talking, people were, the message that was put out when everybody was dying of these lung diseases or lung problems during COVID is they're saying that they got pneumonia. But what you're saying is that they have the ability to utilize their oxygen. Is that one and the same thing, or is it different? Before I go on to my next question.
Now, look, it's all interconnected because the lungs are a unique organ. So when the lungs become hypoxic, it leads to vasoconstriction in the lungs because you don't want to send blood to areas of the lung that can't oxygenate the tissue. So then what happens, you get these secondary infections, what we call superinfections. So the initial infection is viral, then you develop secondary bacterial infections or bacterial pneumonia. And it's because those bacteria grow in that area of the lungs that's hypoxic and isolated from your immune system because the lung has shut off blood supply to that portion. And then it just exacerbates the condition. So whether you give inhaled nitric oxide, which was done during COVID, and you dilate the pulmonary arteries, you match ventilation to perfusion, you improve tissue oxygenation and blood oxygen saturation, you overcome that. Now these bacteria aren't isolated from your immune system, and your immune system goes and kills it. So it's all about adequate circulation, adequate blood flow, matching ventilation to perfusion, and getting adequate oxygen. And all that's dependent upon adequate nitric oxide production.
Wow. Wow. I love what I do. I mean, I've never heard of it, and I'm pretty sure most of my listening audience have not heard of it. That is so amazing. Now, another thing that popped into my mind as you were talking, I was just having a discussion with my daughter the other day, and her mother-in-law died quite suddenly. I mean, she had breast cancer that was festering, and she never got it looked at. But she said something to me that, as you were talking, popped into my mind. She said that I know that she was dying because when she came to the house, she couldn't hardly walk from the car to the house without getting winded. And you find a lot of people have problems, like you just said. They can't walk up the stairs. They can't, they're always being winded. So is that a sign that you're in your last leg? You need nitric oxygen? What is that signaling?
Well, I mean, look, if you look at the vascular portion of that, sure. But in her case, without knowing the full medical history, she could have had full metastatic disease that metastasized to the lungs, and she just couldn't fully oxygenate. But in
Okay.
order to exercise or to walk or to maintain any type of physical activity, we've got to be able to dilate the blood vessels on demand, dilate the blood vessels to the heart. So as you increase your heart rate and increase your the workload on the heart, you've got to be able to dilate the blood vessels to get more oxygen to the working heart. And then if you're walking, you've got to be able to dilate the blood vessels to the legs or the skeletal muscles so you can now, maintain that regimen. But without adequate blood supply and circulation, you're not going to get oxygen to your heart. You're not going to get oxygen to your skeletal muscles, and you're going to tire. You're going to get short of breath, and you're going to want to stop. And that's really a sign of severe nitric oxide deficiency.
Yeah. Well, wow. Wow. So that is amazing. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the first things they tell you, shortness of breath. It's like the, and nobody's ever said because you don't have nitric oxide. I'm not even sure what they're labeling it as, but they always tell you you have shortness of breath. Call your doctor or something. Go ahead. Mhm.
Well, no, I mean, they've used nitroglycerin, right, for patients with ischemic heart disease and angina. So when you get short of breath, you get, chest pain that's called exertional angina. And for more than 150 years now, physicians have used nitroglycerin, either a sublingual or a transdermal, and that drug is metabolized into nitric oxide. This wasn't discovered until the 1970s, but nitroglycerin works because it's metabolized into nitric oxide. It dilates the coronary arteries, and it overcomes the ischemic pain known as angina because it's a vasodilator. It's so most cardiologists know that nitroglycerin is a nitrovasodilator that produces nitric oxide, and that's how it works.
Mhm.
The shortness of breath, chest pain upon exertion is diagnostic for ischemic heart disease.
Right, right,
We've known that
right.
for 100 years.
So that's why they tell you if that's one of your symptoms, call your doctor. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I think in diagnostic, because if you give nitroglycerin and the symptoms go away, it tells you that you have obstructive coronary disease. And your body, your coronary arteries are unable to make nitric oxide to dilate the blood vessels to increase to match the increase in metabolic demands on the heart.
Most of us are trying to eat clean and live healthy. But if the air that you're breathing in is polluted, your body is fighting an invisible battle every single day. I would wake up during the night with parched throat and stuffy nose. So my husband researched air purifiers, and now Air Doctor is the only air purifier we use in our home. I now have reduced allergy symptoms and better sleep. Air Doctor's powerful three-stage filtration captures extremely small particles, about 100 times smaller than what typical air purifiers can remove. It also captures airborne contaminants you don't want to be breathing in, like dust, pollen, mold spores, pet dander, wildfire smoke, bacteria, viruses, odor, smoke, ozone, and VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds. It has a whisper quiet operation, not loud like the others on the market, so that your sleep is not disturbed. Auto mode features ensures optimal air 24/7 and change filter reminders, so no more guesswork. It's also the winner of Newsweek's Reader Choice Award for Best Air Purifier. So head over to airdoctorpro.com and use promo code TRANSFORM to get up to $300 off today. Ear Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee plus a 3-year warranty and $84 value free. Get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com. That's airdoctorpro.com using promo code TRANSFORM. In today's market, brands don't just have an awareness problem, they have a trust problem. People are overwhelmed by ads, skeptical of marketing, and craving something real. That's why CEOs and purpose driven brands partner with the Transform Your Mind podcast. When brands partner with the Transform Your Mind podcast, they're not just buying an ad. They're gaining trusted access to a deeply engaged, values-driven audience that is actively investing in personal growth, wellness, faith, and transformation. So, let us tell your story in a way that actually resonates. Your brand is featured through a CEO or expert interview that positions you as a thought leader. Hosts read pre-roll and mid-roll ads woven naturally into other episodes, and long-term visibility across our full media ecosystem. We distribute every partnership interview across multiple high-impact channels, including 20 podcast platforms and directories, television distribution at PTWWN TV, YouTube and streaming platforms like Reveal, social media clips and reels, and a blog article with backlinks to your website. This means your message doesn't just disappear after one episode. It's repurposed, replayed, and rediscovered across multiple platforms. If your brand serves people who value healing, mindset, wellness, faith, and personal development, the Transform Your Mind podcast offers more than exposure. It offers alignment, authority, and authentic connection. To explore a brand partnership with the Transform Your Mind podcast, visit us at myhelps.us/partner. That is myhelps.us/partner. All right. So we've touched on the shortness of breath. We've touched on the fact that you the signs as you go up, and then dementia, brain fog, right? If your brain is not getting oxygen, then because brain fog is another thing that a lot of people trouble with, especially menopausal women, including me.
Yeah, there's a direct connection because estrogen promotes and stimulates nitric oxide production. And at menopause, when women lose the production of estrogen from their ovaries, then it leads to less stimulation of nitric oxide. So they develop the vascular complications that we see in postmenopausal women, which is brain fog. And eventually it's mild cognitive impairment. And, your risk of Alzheimer's and heart attack and stroke, double, triple, in women postmenopause. So we understand the vascular component of that. And when we look at mild cognitive impairment, dementia, and Alzheimer's, we know that it's a vascular problem and we know it's a metabolic problem. Because if you look at SPECT scans of patients with mild cognitive impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's, we know that there's reduced blood supply to the brain. And then Alzheimer's, as you know, has been called diabetes type 3. So
I've never heard that one.
It's insulin resistance in the brain. So, and all those are consequences of insufficient nitric oxide production, because without nitric oxide, you can't dilate the blood vessels. Without nitric oxide, you can't get glucose into the cell. So when we give nitric oxide, we dilate the blood vessels, we perfuse the brain, we get glucose into the cell, we overcome insulin resistance, we improve mitochondrial function. And when you do that, you don't get misfolding of protein. So there's no tau tangles, there's no amyloid plaque. So nitric oxide is the cure for Alzheimer's and dementia. And we're developing that as a nitric oxide drug that hopefully in the coming years we'll have a safe and effective drug for the treatment of Alzheimer's using our nitric oxide.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm so blown away. Wow. You're just expanded my mind. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's been very frustrating for me to watch over the past 20 years, these companies spending billions and billions of dollars on monoclonal antibody drug therapy against the tau tangles and the amyloid plaque, because that's not the cause of disease. Those are consequences of disease, and targeting a consequence of disease, just as we know in Western medicine, doesn't make anyone better.
Yeah.
We have to understand the mechanism of disease. We have to understand the root cause and address the root cause. And fortunately, we understand the basic science and the clinical translation of that to know how to give nitric oxide at the right dose to the right patient, and it can fix a lot of things.
Wow. Okay, so that's great. Now I'm very interested in this next question. You mentioned it earlier, and it's one of the questions that I have here. So, there's a lot of men that trouble from erectile dysfunction.
Mhm.
You know, they used to say that when you get older, maybe 60 or something, but now I hear it's starting at 40 years old and men are having problems with erectile dysfunction. I mean, I'm not quite sure what the industry is saying is the cause of it, but you're saying that is the fact that they're nitric oxide deficient, so they're not dilating the blood vessels. So could that be the only cause, or there's more?
Now, look, usually in men, it's a vascular problem. It's a blood flow problem, right? And so you have to ask, what's causing the disruption of nitric oxide production? And I would even say, I've got a lot of physician colleagues who see 20, 24-year-old kids presenting with severe erectile dysfunction.
Oh, you're kidding. I did not know it went that low. I heard 40 and I thought that was ridiculous.
Yeah,
No.
really, 40, if you look at the
Wow.
clinical data, 50% of the men over the age of 40 self-report erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
Self-report. I think the numbers are much larger because most men, I'm 51, most men that I know, even though they may have erectile dysfunction, would never admit it to their physician. And I think that's a very dangerous proposition because it's a sign of systemic disease. So what we know is that, and this is based on the drugs like Viagra, how they work, they're called phosphodiesterase inhibitors, and how they work to improve erectile function.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we have to do when we're stimulated, the sex organs, both the female and male genitalia, are highly innervated with nerve endings. We call these non-adrenergic, non-cholinergic nerve endings, and they're highly vascularized. So when we're stimulated, either through intimacy or chemistry through our partner, those nerves fire and they release nitric oxide, and then that dilates the blood vessels. Then that causes shear stress, and it causes the endothelial cells in the sex organs to dilate to generate more nitric oxide, causing further dilation. And in men, that's an erection. In women, it's a clitoral erection, and you get increase in labial pressure, and that explains the female sexual cycle and of orgasm in women. So if you can't make nitric oxide, you don't dilate the blood vessels and you don't get engorgement. So that told us, PD5 inhibitors, drugs like Viagra, were approved in 1998. And today, on the market now for 27, 28 years, they only work in 50% of the men. Despite billions of dollars in sales every year, these drugs work only in 50% of the population which they're intended to treat. And the reason these drugs don't work is because the patients that don't respond are not making any nitric oxide.
Mm.
Because when you understand how these drugs work, so nitric oxide is produced, it binds to an enzyme in the smooth muscle that surrounds the blood vessels. That enzyme is called guanylyl cyclase. And I'm going to go a little bit into chemistry here, but I think it's very important, so stick with me. But that enzyme creates a molecule called cyclic GMP. And that releases calcium and causes smooth muscle relaxation. And that's what's called vasodilation. So there's enzymes called phosphodiesterase enzymes that degrade this second messenger cyclic GMP. So what is Viagra? It's a phosphodiesterase inhibitor. So it prevents the breakdown of that second messenger. So what happens is nitric oxide is produced and it turns on the switch. And then Viagra comes in and prevents you from turning off the switch.
Mm.
It's the
So that's why sometimes the men can't get rid of that erection.
No, that's why 4-hour erections are very dangerous. Some men are proud of that, but it prevents the outflow. So you run out of oxygen, and now that organ becomes necrotic, and it could lead to permanent necrosis and permanent damage.
Yeah.
You have to be careful, and you have to be able to release that outflow to fully oxygenate that tissue, or else it becomes necrotic. But that's how these drugs work. So erectile dysfunction is a symptom of nitric oxide deficiency. And if you restore nitric oxide production, you can overcome erectile dysfunction. And if you restore nitric oxide production, you can take the non-responders to PD5 inhibitor therapy and make them responsive. So that explains the entire mechanism of how we regulate blood flow, not just to the sex organs, but to the heart, to the brain, to the liver, to the gut when we eat and we need to absorb nutrients and digest our food. That's basic physiology 101.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Um, so we talked about the heart, the sex organs, the brain, but you also added a couple of other organs there.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the symptoms of you not getting, or diseases that you're not getting any blood flow to your liver and pancreas and all those other things? Same thing that
Look,
we.
every chronic disease, it's independent of the organ system. But because every chronic disease, there's always 4 things that happen. There's always low blood flow to that affected organ. That organ's always inflamed. It generates a lot of oxidative stress. And then you see infiltration of immune cells, and we call that immune dysfunction.
Mm.
And all of those result from a simple loss of one molecule, and that's nitric oxide. So that when you restore nitric oxide, you dilate the blood vessels, so you overcome the lack of blood flow. You reduce inflammation. Many of my patents are methods of reducing inflammation. You inhibit the oxidative stress that's occurring in that diseased organ, and you correct the immune dysfunction. So it doesn't matter if we're looking at the brain, the heart, the sex organs, the liver, the lungs. When you give nitric oxide, it addresses the hallmarks of every chronic disease. And that's
Wow.
where medicine has failed us because, we've become so specialized. Cardiologists only look at the heart, hepatologists only look at the liver, neurologists, the brain. But everything is connected. And what's the connection? The cardiovascular system, the blood vessels that supply oxygen nutrients to that organ. And all that is controlled by the single molecule nitric oxide, which is a gas that diffuses, it signals. And when you run out of it, bad things happen.
Wow, that's amazing. I know. I mean, I've had a lot of functional medicine doctors come on and they talk about the same thing that, yeah, you've got to look at the whole thing. You've got to look at the connection because, yeah, these individual specialist doctors are really, probably outdated now.
Yeah,
So,
they don't talk to one another. Amazing.
wow, wow, wow. Yes. Okay. So, if you're not making this nitric oxide, maybe the first question I should ask is what can we do to improve our production of nitric oxide? And then we can talk about if your body is not producing it. I know that you sell supplements or something, so we can talk about that.
Yeah, no, so look, it's probably the most important question anyone can ask is how do we improve or prevent the loss of nitric oxide production? And today we have the answer, but to get the answer, we had to answer the question of how does the body naturally produce it? And then what goes wrong with those natural production pathways? So here's what we've learned over the past 30 years that anything that leads to an elevation in blood sugar causes a decrease in nitric oxide production.
Oh, wow.
Anything that kills the bacteria in our mouth, in our gut, shuts down nitric oxide production. Anything that suppresses stomach acid decreases nitric oxide production. So there's 4 big things right there, right? So we have to eliminate sugar and simple carbohydrates from our diet that are causing an increase in blood sugar. And sugar, glucose, what we measure, is glue, as the name implies. So it sticks to things. And in biochemical systems, when you glue a protein together with glucose or sugar, it can't do its job. In fact, the
Mhm.
enzyme that makes nitric oxide, when sugar stuck to it, it can't make nitric oxide.
Hmm.
Number 2 is anything that kills the bacteria in our mouth and in our gut. So what is that? That's fluoride. Fluoride's an antiseptic. It's in most toothpaste. Antiseptic mouthwash. You've seen the commercials. This mouthwash kills 99.99% of the bacteria in your mouth.
Yeah.
They promote that. They're proud of that. And it's killing people. And then number 4, antacids. The proton pump inhibitors completely shut down nitric oxide production. They're causing a 40% increase in heart attack, stroke, and Alzheimer's. So
Wow.
that's the data.
That hurts my heart because yeah, we're doing all this thing.
Literally.
We're doing all these things. And that's the question I had earlier when I talked about acid in the stomach. It's stomach acid. I was
Right.
thinking that it's the nitric, but they're 2 different gases, right? Because I know the stomach acid is bad. But yeah, if you've got stomach
Stomach
acid,
acid is not bad. Stomach acid is absolutely necessary. There's a reason that our creator designed us for the pyloric cells to make hydrochloric acid. We need stomach acid to absorb nutrients like calcium, iron, B vitamins, selenium, chromium, iodine. And we need stomach acid to break down proteins into amino acids. Whether you eat plant protein or animal protein, the human body is never designed to assimilate foreign protein into our human genome. So what happens is we break down those proteins into their amino acids, and then we make those amino acids and make our own human proteins out of them. But without stomach acid, we can't break those proteins into amino acids. So what happens? We get peptide fragments absorbed across the gut. We develop an antibody against it. We develop foodborne allergies. We develop autoimmune disease. And why is that? Because we're suppressing stomach acid.
yeah. I heard that before that taking antacids are bad for you. And that's basically what you
Not
just
bad
said.
for you. It's not bad for you. It's deadly for you. 40% increase in heart attack, stroke, and Alzheimer's. I mean, these are some of the most dangerous drugs on the market. And yet you don't even have to have a prescription for these drugs anymore. You can go to your corner store and get Prilosec, Prevacid, Nexium over the counter. And these drugs were never approved for chronic use. Only 3 to 5 days for reflux disease. And yet many people have been on these drugs for 10, 15, 20 years. And the
Yeah, because
consequences are they're dying of heart attack and stroke and getting Alzheimer's.
oh wow. Wow. You know, this is why we do this show, right? This is why you're on the show, is to promote and to educate people, because my husband has acid reflux and takes those drugs. And yeah, I know that that's why I've heard of it, that it's not very good for you. But now I
All you
know
have to
why.
do, don't take my word, read the package insert. When you buy that medicine, read the package insert. And if people would do this, no one in their right mind would ever take a drug if they were properly informed of the side effects and what these drugs actually do. Nobody in their right mind would do it.
Yeah. Wow. 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 That is definitely amazing. All right. So we've talked about how, what we're doing to prevent our body from making nitric oxide. So let's say we have a patient that's been taking what you call it?
The antacid.
Right. All their lives, and they're depleted of nitric oxide. So what do you offer that helps them to replenish that?
Well, obviously, we try to remove the brakes on the body's natural production. So we try to inform and teach and instruct on how to wean off the antacids. And this is very difficult because you can't just stop these drugs cold turkey because it's going to get a huge rebound effect. But over time, you can slowly titrate down the dose of these drugs and eventually wean off of them. That's number one. Number two, you start taking the apple cider vinegar before every meal. So that's going to acidify the lumen of the stomach. So now you can break down your foods and you're not going to get the reflux. So reflux is a symptom of insufficient stomach acid production, not overproduction.
Okay.
So then, if you're using mouthwash, you must stop. If you have fluoride in your toothpaste, you must get rid of fluoride. If you have fluoride in your drinking water, you must get a home filtration system. Or hopefully now there's a movement to get fluoride out of all municipalities.
Yeah,
But
JFK or whatever his name is.
yeah,
He's been leading that, and it's been very unpopular. So I guess he needs you to tell the people
look,
why.
you follow the science. It may be unpopular, but the unpopularity is due to ignorance. And ignorance is curable. Ignorance is just a lack of information. And so we can cure ignorance. So it's a very important initiative. So once you do all that, then you can exercise, you can eat a balanced diet in moderation, you get 20, 30 minutes of sunlight, and all those things stimulate and activate the endogenous nitric oxide production. But even if all those systems are broken, my 25 years in academia, I've developed technology that actually produces nitric oxide gas. So if your body can't make it, then we do it for you. And we do this in the form of we call an orally disintegrating tablet. You put in your mouth and dissolves over 5 minutes, but it releases nitric oxide gas. So if your body can't make it, if you're on antacids, if you use mouthwash, if you use fluoride in your toothpaste, we still provide nitric oxide when all other nitric oxide products on the market fail because they're relying on endogenous systems that in most people are dysfunctional or broken and they can't utilize those products. So, but more importantly, I think we're fixing the reason your body can't make nitric oxide. So we're steadily improving the body's natural production of this molecule.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. So, the men go back to the
Yeah.
the erectile dysfunction part. So, the men that have erectile dysfunction because they're not the vascular system is not dilating. If they were to cut out mouthwash and if they were to cut out fluoride, um, are they naturally going to start dilating?
Well, as long as we focus on the function of the enzyme, so we have to look a little bit deeper into the endothelial cells and look at how well that enzyme is working. And if we can maintain normal enzymatic function, then yeah, of course they're going to be able to produce nitric oxide vasodilate. But you've got to stop doing the things that are leading to a natural inhibition of that process. But yeah, we're finding that if you get people off mouthwash, if you remove fluoride, and if you wean them off antacids and they start to exercise a little bit and improve their vascular function, then they're going to be able to dilate the blood vessels and maintain normal erections. And that should be the goal of medicine, to understand the limitations on endogenous physiological systems and then activate those, prime those without medication. That's our goal.
Wow. 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 That's amazing. I mean, my mind is blown. Like I said, I've never even heard about this product before.
Yeah.
When I first heard it, I'm thinking of the stomach acid, hydrochloride acid. Right. And you've just, again, educated me and the listening audience on, it's not that bad for you. You need it. And you shouldn't try to suppress it because you need it to break down your foods.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why these conversations are so important because,
Yes.
there's a lot of misinformation out there,
I
even in the
love that.
medical field. And I think, with my background in biochemistry and physiology and 25 years in academic medicine and science, I understand this. And so my job, I see it as to take the information and impart knowledge. And that's very difficult to do because there's so much misinformation out there.
Yeah.
You can't get knowledge from misinformation.
Right.
Knowledge
The
is
bad thing is too, is that everybody's saying different things. If you go to nutrition, one person is saying, well, this is not something that people can dispute because it's to me, it's you talk about the science, right? Your book says it, bring in the science. But things like, nutrition, there's so many people telling you this is good for you, then the other person is saying this is bad for you. And so yeah, there's not only misinformation, but there's all these conflicting information. But yes.
Yeah, no, like it's a huge problem, and we have to do better. The science is very clear. We have to now, take the science and change the way we've been doing things. We've been doing this. I think it's clear, but America is the most advanced, innovative country in the world, and yet we have the sickest people on the earth. So
Mm.
it's clear to me that medicine today is not making anyone better.
Right.
And then you look at 40, 50-year-olds across the US, they're on a dozen or more different medications, and they wonder why they don't feel good. It's
Yeah.
because our body's never designed to be exposed to these synthetic drugs every day for the rest of our life. It's inhibiting biochemical systems that our creator gave us. And that's
Mm.
implying that we're smarter than our creator, and that's simply not the case. The human body is much smarter than we are. We got to get out of the way. Give the body what it needs, remove from the body what it doesn't need, and let the body do its job. And that's the secret to longevity. And we have to eat right. We have to move. We have to exercise. And we have to keep our mind, active. And, I believe it's a balance between physical, spiritual, and emotional health. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't-
I agree. I love you. I love you saying with the 30 minutes of sunlight per day. I do that. I walk in the park.
every day.
I live in Florida, so I can do it. But yeah, sunlight is very important too. All right, so let's touch on the longevity part. Did we miss anything on that? I know we talked about nitric oxide helps you prevent dementia and brain fog and get rid of chronic illnesses and let your lungs function better and all that. Is that all there is to longevity or is there more?
Now, look, when we look at longevity, so that's really looking at biological systems and how do we prevent the onset and progression of chronic disease. That's a little bit different. That's almost a reactive practice, right? When we look at longevity, we want to be proactive. Let's take steps before we get sick or develop symptoms. So when I look at longevity, I look at kind of what the three objective measures of longevity, which are the length of our telomeres, the ends of the chromosomes. I look at mitochondrial function, how many mitochondria per cell, and how well are those mitochondria producing cellular energy. And then number three, the amount of stem cells in circulation. And so if you have short telomere, shorter lifespan. If you have dysfunctional mitochondria, shorter lifespan. If you don't have adequate stem cells that we can mobilize and you can't repair and replace dysfunctional cells, and you age much quicker. So nitric oxide is what we call the unified theory of aging, because nitric oxide, as I mentioned earlier, mobilizes stem cells. It activates mitochondrial biogenesis and improves mitochondrial ATP production. And it activates an enzyme called telomerase, which prevents the telomeres from getting shorter. So if you want to live a longer, healthier, better life free of disease, nitric oxide is at the top of the list. There are other things you need to do, but if you don't first restore the production of nitric oxide, you're going to have kind of limited returns. So we call it foundational. It's not a silver bullet. It's not an end all be all cure all, but it's foundational for everything we know about health and longevity.
I love it. Well, my telomeres are great. I think
Dude.
mine is like the 90. When I did measure mine, they says that I'm a, that I have the telomere length of a 39-year-old and I'm 66.
Wow. You look great. But keep doing what you're doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do. Yeah. So, okay. So, how do you measure those other two? I mean, is there tests to measure your mitochondrial and your stem cell things, or how do you
You
measure
can do,
those?
I mean, not you can do muscle biopsies and look through electron microscopy and look at the number of mitochondria. You can do ADP to ATP ratios and look at the function of the mitochondrium. Unfortunately, a lot of these tests aren't used clinically. We use it in the research environment. But yeah, in stem cells, you can draw peripheral blood and look at the number of circulating stem cells, whether they're endothelial progenitor cells or different cell markers that are specific for certain types of stem cells. But yeah, you can do that. It's costly. Insurance doesn't pay for that. But if you're curious, the technology is available.
Wow. That's the first time I've heard that one. So I've heard about the benefits of mitochondria and all these different things. In fact, I just mentioned to you at the beginning of the session that my uncle just died. He had prostate cancer,
Mhm.
but he at 75 he just fell off the cliff. And I was always curious about what really killed him because I know that prostate cancer doesn't kill you. And basically what he died of, no energy to eat, no energy to whatever.
Mm.
So obviously his mitochondria wasn't producing anything for energy. So I know that mitochondria is very important, and everybody talks about gut health, and I've had several people on the show talk about gut health, and I follow it. In fact, I drink apple cider vinegar. I didn't know that's why I was drinking it, but I drink it for weight loss.
Intuition, intuition.
I drink it. So, I mean, I know about, but this is the first time I've heard anybody talk about circulating stem cells. So I'll definitely look into that one. So that's amazing. Thank you for that. All right.
Yes.
So, tell us about your book. The book is called The Secret of Nitric Oxide, Bringing the Science to Life. Why do you write it? And what do you want readers to walk away with after reading?
This book I published in February this year through Brook Tower Press, my publisher and my agent, Alan Morrell. The purpose and motivation was twofold. Number one, to tell the story of nitric oxide, how this molecule was discovered, what led to a Nobel Prize, and why everybody on Earth should be understand this molecule is and how their body's able to produce it. So tell the story of nitric oxide, impart the true scientific information into knowledge. But then number two, tell my personal story of discovery. Because what we've discovered is very disruptive. And I've seen a lot of ridicule, I've seen a lot of opposition, and I've been sued by competitors and people who tried to stop me. And so, I hope it's inspirational. I hope it's motivating because when you do things that are disruptive, people come after you. And so if people are experiencing this, then, I tell them you're on the brink of a breakthrough because if you're doing things that are trivial and don't matter, people leave you alone. If you're doing things that matter and that are disruptive, then people come after you and they come after you hard. And so, just stick to it, stick to your guns, believe in your dreams. Don't let people tell you it can't be done. But years ago, people told me what I'm doing is impossible. You can't do it. And, to me, that's motivation. So there's the personal journey of the discovery intermixed upon the story of nitric oxide and really some of the discoveries we've made that led to these, products that we're now developing is, dietary supplements and topical drugs and oral drugs for things like heart disease and Alzheimer's, which I believe is going to change the world.
Wow. Such a pleasure to talk to you. Wow. And listen, congratulations on what you're doing because, hey, God gives you talent to so that you can share it, so you can help mankind. And yeah, I mean, some people like Big Pharma, they're only interested in the money, which is why I mentioned Dr. Atia at the start of this conversation. And he's talking about, they only want to fix they want to treat the symptoms of the disease. They don't care about the root cause. They don't care about eliminating because
Yeah.
obviously there's no money in that.
No
So,
money in
yeah.
curing. There's no money in cures. It's all in
Mm,
treatment, chronic treatment.
yes.
But no, I think look, it's very important. I've been offered more money than I could spend in my lifetime, but I'm not building it to sell it. I'm not building it to put money in my pocket. I'm building it because I think the world deserves these discoveries to come to market that have access to everybody on the globe. And, I've been blessed. I don't take that for granted. And, I think I have a conversation with our creator every day, because to understand what goes wrong in biological systems, we need to have a conversation with the creator. And I think that's
Yes.
part of the wisdom and insight, to me, that perhaps other scientists have lacked.
That's beautiful. Yes, I can tell. I can see your sincerity. I can see your heart. I can see your passion. And that's why I made that comment. So that's amazing. It's great. And you've educated me. I mean, I told you in the beginning at the beginning of the show that I'm talking to all these scientists that are bringing to market these wonderful products, and this is, to me, this is the best one.
Yeah. Well, I have a very strong bias, but I would agree with you.
I'm thinking this is the best one. Oh, that's amazing. All right. So tell your listener audience how they can get in touch with you, your website, some of the products that you might want to highlight that they can they can use to supplement nitric oxide if they're not producing it, and also where they can find you on social media.
So yeah, I'm less interested in pitching products. I'm more interested in providing, scientific education and awareness. So I send people to my YouTube channel, subscribe. It's Dr. Nathan S. Bryan, Nitric Oxide. We put out, weekly, sometimes many times weekly, just timely information, scientific information that hopefully you can take and put to practice. Number two, I'd encourage everyone to get the book, nathansbook.com, or it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, but it's The Secret of Nitric Oxide, Bring the Science to Life. I'm on Instagram, Dr. Nathan S. Bryan, same handle on LinkedIn. I'm Dr. Nitric. And then for those interested in our product technology, it's n101.com. That's the letter N, number one, letter O, number one.com. And that's our main consumer brand of products. We make an orally disintegrating tablet. It's called a lozenge. 60 lozenges taking one lozenge twice a day. It releases nitric oxide. We make a fermented beet powder called Beets that we use as a pre-workout or an energy product. We make a skincare line of nitric oxide for the skin, removes fine lines and wrinkles, and helps in cellular turnover, mobilizes stem cells, improving collagen deposition. That's our N101 nitric oxide activating serum. What else? We've got a whole skincare line, a glycolic wash, exfoliating wash, and then a hydrating face cream and eye cream.
Wow, I love it. So would you suggest that people maybe get tested to see if they're producing nitric oxide regularly? I mean, naturally before they go buy the lodgings, or how do they decide whether they should go start supplementing with nitric oxide?
Well, there's only two people in the world who need nitric oxide. If you're sick and want to get well, you need it. And if you're well and don't want to get sick, you need it.
Okay. All right.
For me, there's
Take it anyway, even if you think you've got enough supply. Take
no, look, because we live in a toxic world and there's always impediments to our production of nitric oxide. But what I will say for kind of the preventive, proactive approach, one lozenge twice a day, I've been doing that for more than 20 years, and it works.
Okay.
But if you have other issues, then dosing is going to dictate, or your symptoms are going to dictate the dosing. And that's why we encourage you to work with your practitioner, or, dose according to, your own needs and how you feel. But what we know through published clinical data, that one lozenge every 4 hours is extremely safe. No safety issues whatsoever. If you take one sooner than one every 4 hours, then, we really just don't. I'm pretty confident it's safe, but we go on placebo-controlled clinical trials and looking at the safety in randomized clinical trials.
Wow. Yes. Well, I'm definitely need to get that. You talked about the disadvantages of menopause, and definitely, and of course, insulin resistance and all those things. Wow. Yes. I need to get on. I need to get on the bandwagon. So that's amazing.
Well, I know a guy. I'll get you hooked up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. Wow. This has been an excellent conversation. I mean, I love it when my mind is blown. I love it when I learn things. I love it when I bring on quality guests that is changing the world and helping mankind, and helping us with our longevity and anti-aging and health span. I love it. It, fires me up and it lights me up. So this has been one of these conversations that I'm fired up. So thank you, Dr. Bryan, for being on the show. I will have a summary of my conversation with Dr. Bryan on my website, which is myhelps.us. I will link out his book. I will link out his website, his social media on Instagram, and definitely his YouTube channel, which is the one he wants you to follow, because there you'll get, video information. So that's amazing. I'll link out to all that because, yes, I want to help spread the word of this information. It is foundational. Wow. So, I mean, you can hear me that I'm still passionate. He is passionate.
Contagious, right? Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Myrna. It's been a great honor and pleasure to be with you.
You're very welcome. All right. Well, listen, thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so you can transform your life. And this has been a conversation that can transform your mind, transform your life, transform your health, transform your longevity, and basic things, oxygenation, and we learned so much here. We even went into some science, but yeah, this is what you call good content. So thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, listen, thanks to Dr. Bryan. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.